Okay, folks, here we go.
Here we go. Let's have a good show.
1B, stand by.
Yeah.
Yacht, stand.
Yeah,
Take it.
just
Okay,
go right now. Go to camera 3. 3. Go to the perfect, just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yep, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first day.
Okay.
Go right now. Go to camera 3. Go, yep. Go to the perfect, just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q, Sophie.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
SPM.
Go ready.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it. 2.5.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
1B, stand by.
10, 9, 8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
and we're live.
Okay, and go for it, guys.
All right, here we go. We are live. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is 5 p.m. Pacific Time. And 7 p.m. Canal Zone Time. And now in full Technicolor, our friend Ricky Royo out west. Happy Friday to you, man.
Hey, thank you for that, Willie. And you are right. We have a new camera at the Rick Royal Studio. So enjoy. I've got a lot to talk about tonight. So we can talk about the camera and all the great features, but let's get rolling. I've been waiting for tonight, Willie. Welcome, welcome, everybody, to Happy Hour at the Balboa Yacht Club, an iconic place, by the way. A Friday night happy hour dedicated, guys, to the history of the Panama Canal, where we discuss with our viewing audience all about the history of the canal, from the construction to the politics involved when this thing all went down in 1903, to the architecture, towns, social events back then and today. And most important, it's all about the people who lived there. Not only the people who built the canal, designed the canal, worked the canal, and lived the canal like Willie and I. It's all about those people, really. This show is all about them. So really enjoy our show tonight, guys. We've got some great content. And cheers to that eighth wonder of the world and to all the work that Willie does to make this show as good as it is. Thank you, Willie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely, guys. And don't forget, of course, the most important thing is to subscribe to the channel. That's the one thing we want. We get those subscriptions. So definitely do that if you can. But great show tonight. Another month we do our excavating shows. We're going to be a lot of fun here. We're going to talk about the Gatun Dam. Okay, that's really kind of what makes the whole thing work, right? Without the Gatun Dam, I mean, think about it. The canal is water powered, right? It's 100% powered by water, and the only way that you can use the abundance of water you have in Panama is with that Gatun Dam. So we're going to learn a lot about the dam there and a couple other things there. Ricky's got a lot of bochincha, like he mentioned tonight, so which means we'll probably have to have a bochincha tune come out as well and make its appearance as usual there. And then, of course, tomorrow is Happy Birthday Panama Canal. Right?
That is correct.
It's right around, I guess, around the corner. It's right on top of us.
That's 112 years now since the day it opened.
112 years. And most of that stuff is the original stuff that's on there. They've upgraded a couple of things on there, but it's a testament to what was made in a time when the technology was still even unheard of. As we've learned, a lot of it was created by the Americans in their efforts to build this canal. So, but anyhow, let's say hello to a couple of folks here, and then we'll move right along.
Oh, got a full house. Right on, guys.
Hotlanta, indeed. It is absolutely. Yeah, no, it is definitely Hotlanta right now, no doubt about it. It's hot everywhere. It's funny how 1 week changes everything here in the Southeast, because last week we couldn't stop it raining here. It was just rain nonstop for an entire week. It was just overcast and rainy and wet, and now it's nothing but pure heat. But it is what it is. It's not like Panama, rainy season, dry season. You just move on there, right? Hello from sunny New Mexico. Are we still on white? We are on white squares again. God darn it. Okay, let me. I gotta check that sooner.
Oh,
back to white squares.
We are on
let me
white
jump
squares.
out real quick, and then you'll jump in. Okay, I'm gonna jump out, and then you jump out. One at a
All
time.
right, sorry guys. I don't know. We got all this stuff fixed with all the AI helping us out, but who knows what it's all about, guys. But as Wooly does that, let me tell you, our show tonight, we're gonna do an announcement section, and of course, comments with you guys, followed by Bo Ching Chin. I've got some good stuff for you guys. I'm gonna hold off for that. And we also are gonna have tonight restaurant recommendations. We're starting to build a team of chefs. 2 live down there, and 1 travels a lot, who's on his way to retirement. But tonight we will give you some great recommendations. Yeah, Willie, still we got the white guys. Just hang tight, guys. We always have to be ready to troubleshoot. That's the one thing about doing live shows. You've got to be a tremendous troubleshooter.
What the hell is going on?
Maybe, who knows? We're going to have to ask ChatGPT to help us fix it. All right, as we keep going, guys, we are also going to be discussing Shorty and Slim. They've got a couple of gigs this weekend. We're going to update you guys on that, as well as some train updates, some ACP updates, and like always, we have a little sports update and a little politics to update you guys on, because this whole China-Panama thing is back on. Just last week, we shook hands and said, let's let bygones be bygones.
All right, I got it fixed now, so let me remove you real quick, and I'll throw you back on. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And Ricky for jumping in and doing his thing there with us. But apparently we have to remove us from the scene, not log out of the studio. So I logged back out of the studio, but it still had us in the same stupid scene. So it threw me out and threw yourself out here. And now let me fix this, and you will be all set to go. But here we go. This is another reason why we need a producer, man, because some of this stuff can be done.
Your troubleshooting has become quite, you're pretty good at troubleshooting.
All right, so now I'm on the air, and I believe you are. Let me double check. There you are. Bam. Okay, we are good to go. So,
hi everybody.
Sorry about that, guys. We get so caught up in it, we don't even bother looking at the chat.
Cheers to your troubleshooting, though, bro.
Right away. But,
truly, cheers to your troubleshooting. Here, look at that. Look at that mug.
Play Bochincha. That's what I should have done. Is switch to a Bochincha song or gone to a commercial or something. That's a good call. From now on, that's what we'll do. Throw it out there. Throw some Howlin' Monkey or something out there. But,
that is true. We were told that's to do whenever we have technical difficulties. Not police. Yes. Please order a just straight up pepperoni. There's nothing better than that.
Right.
But I do like their ham. Their ham with clams. I mean, if you want to go a little bit outside the norm, try that. It's really good.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
You know what, Napoli's, all the side dishes, I know we always go there for pizza and we never get the lasagna or any of the other stuff, but that is what they're famous for. The Zonian community, we just love their pizza, right? And there's other pizza places down in Panama that would say they're way better than Napoli's, and perhaps so, but not for the Zonian community. But there are other dishes, Willie.
Still, guys, so you don't throw his thing off here, but...
Yeah, I know.
You're moving around. You're getting all.
So what it is my camera now is AI, so it follows me everywhere. So if I go like that, it'll go move with me. So I have to be still. I don't know how that's going to happen.
Yes, you do. But no. So let's just move right along here. Now that we've kind of got things squared away and taken care of. Say hello to a couple more people. Andrew, good to see you. Yes, good to see you. Hopefully you're back in Pan, safe and sound. Camera 2 is good. Yes, we are. We are finally up and running. Poof, he is here. Yes. There's only one pizza place in Panama. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. No, we agree with you. The whole Zonian community will agree with you. There's when you do a pizza, like who's the best pizza, there's Napoli, and then the competition starts, right? Napoli doesn't even compete.
Well, that's like the standard you compare it to. Is really what it boils down to. Because there really is nothing like a Napoli's pizza. It really is.
And there is Willie, there is a pizza place in Panama we talk about here all the time that is in a world-ranked pizza place. World-ranked in 24th or some number like that. I always forget because every year they go up.
Right.
But for the Zonian community, nah. You start, I said, Napoli's is, okay, where's the best pizza? Okay, you got Napoli's. All right, who else is left?
Exactly. That's second. In other words, you're playing for second place.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, because it's got tradition. And the interesting thing is that a lot of that was really to cater to the military crowd that was in the Canal Zone at the time.
Yes.
You know,
we did research
they really
on
were the
on the owner. Remember, if you recall, Willie, maybe a year or so ago, and he worked for an American bar. And and he's like, wait, man, there's so many Americans here. We need to give them more service, and that's why he put the pizza place, because they had like a chicken place, a ham place. They had all the things covered but pizza. And so the guy jumped on it, and boy, look at that.
Yeah.
Third generation of people running that restaurant. It's the founder's grandkids run it now. And then they're doing the delivery and all the other cool stuff.
Oh, very good. And they do have the 2 locations. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Good for them. Good for them. Yeah, absolutely.
But Panama mostly likes what the Zonian community calls clean naps. We have dirty naps and clean naps. Sorry that we call it that, guys, but only the Zonians understand.
I've never understood that name, dirty naps.
It's because of where they are in town. You know, one is like in the upscale part of town, and the other one is kind of in a rougher part of town. That's why we got the dirty and clean.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. Then I thought it was kind of like talking about the place. I'm thinking, well, no.
It's just the location.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Oh, that's okay. Right on. Cool. All right, listen, let's get some announcements going and then get Ricky's Bochinche going here, and then we'll jump on some excavation here. But don't forget, guys, our K-Pasta segment is always sponsored by the Canal Zone documentary Substack, and we'll talk about that as soon as we get through with our little tune here.
SCN Television presents K-Pasa. And now here's this evening's host, Army Sergeant Bob Foster.
Good evening and welcome to K-Pasa. We've got 2 guests tonight. First Sergeant First Class Jim Webb. Sergeant Webb's with the 227th Military Police.
That's right.
I just love that intro, man.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, it really gets us in the mood, you know, like to get this show going. Yeah,
that's the one that takes you back to the zone, man.
But that sure does. Well, Shorty and Slim seems to always take us back to the zone, and they've got 2 big gigs tonight. Sunday night, guys, at 4 p.m. Actually, they're going to be at the train station. So try to make it to see a good show. B, for a good cause, to do whatever we can at the last moment to save that building, which, you know, deserves to be saved. It really does. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, but so what? Do it, save it, preserve it, and let's go. Yeah, and Willie, I think they're also playing Saturday.
Playing Saturday at the Elks Club, and Saturday is their 31st anniversary. As long as they've been around, they've been almost as long as the Panama Canal. You know,
and singing about the Panama Canal at the Elks Club. Huh? Okay, so everybody remember, if you're down there, Elks Club is a big Canal Zone hangout. Has been for many years. We'll be playing, and then tomorrow's also, you know.
God darn it! They did it again, man.
We're out again. Oh my God!
Yeah,
Willie.
Man, this is getting ridiculous. This is
you know what? We could do this segment without our faces. Why don't we put on a screen that doesn't have our faces? Then everybody knows what we look like.
Yeah, I guess we can do that.
All right, let's just go right to Bochinche while you fix all that stuff, man. So, here we are, Bochinche for tonight's segment.
Hold on, we can at least do that. Well, let's do some Bochinche the right way. Where the hell is that
right way?
Bochinche? Well, you know the way it's, you know, Bochinche was made to be. They don't have to
see us.
No, but they should at least hear the Bochinche too.
El Bochinche. El Bochinche. El Bochinche. El Bochinche. El Bochinche. El Bochinche. El Bochinche.
All right, so I'm on the screen now. Let me get Ricky off of there and throw him back on, and then we'll see if that fixes it. But this is really getting annoying. Yeah, look at me out there with the big old green screen and everything. You know,
but you know what, Willie? Maybe it's just, you know, we've got so much AI working on this screen that's probably why. We got so many things happening in that screen.
I think I think it's an issue with these people. I'm going to call them. I'll reach out to them tomorrow and find out what the hell's going on with their system. This is kind of ridiculous.
All right, well, let's get some Bochinche out there, guys. Listen, if you're in Panama and you think you can still park on the sidewalk, or if you're in Miguelito, if you still think you can park on sidewalks, well, guess what? They're going to start towing you. And there was a big thing happened this week in Panama. This one guy was the municipality of San Miguelito sent some people out to give out 30-day warning. Listen, you can't park on the sidewalk, blah, blah, blah. So this one guy got really upset, and he was screaming at the top of his lungs, like a 62-year-old guy, which is my age, screaming at the top of his lung, I've been living with my mother for 60 years, and I've always parked here. Tell that woman, where am I supposed to park? But the thing is that the guy made such a show that there are a number of memes coming out with that guy yelling that and everybody making fun of it. But truly, Panama now is cleaning up its act. No more parking on sidewalks. They're going to tow you. And it's a $300 ticket. 300.
Wow. Playing.
I mean, they got to put a stop to that ASAP, right? And you know what, truly, Willie, what I'm seeing is the reason why is Panama's so freaking hot because all the trees have been cut down. Yeah. So gaining that area back allows, there's always there's a planting area and a sidewalk area. The planting area is obviously for all the infrastructure, all the underground stuff goes on in the planting area. Well, and there's where you can put all the trees, and that's what both municipalities are doing. And what they do is they're copying Medellin. Medellin is really known for planting a lot of trees and reducing the heat. Like, I don't know exactly how many, but it seems like they always talk about like it's a 20-degree difference when you have trees versus no trees. Sure. So park correctly if you're down there, guys. Let's see. ACP News. Listen, this is for the announcements. If you're down there, anybody, their apprenticeship starts pretty soon. They're taking applications. 200 spots, Willie. So, man, Panama, jump on that. If your nephews, your nieces, your grandkids, whatever it is, get them in there. Apprenticeship, 200 spots, ACP. So, they're always, they're doing a good job, man. There's nothing to it. They're truly a great, great organization. All right.
And I did hear from them, actually, from their office. They unfortunately, with everything going on with the whole, anniversary of the canal and everything, it was, kind of short notice. But they said they definitely wanted, they wanted to join us. They just, timing wasn't right now. So that's cool. I'm no rush.
We'll follow up, but still, we're never going to get anybody here if we don't try. So good job, Willie 100%. And Ralphie. Ralphie set that up, by the way.
Yeah.
So right on.
He did.
All right. ACP. What else is ACP doing, guys? So Willie, when you cross the canal, there's like different pay structures and different ways of crossing it. One is, of course, you call ahead of time, you get your reservation, and you do everything properly. There's one price. And of course, there's one for the guys that show up with no reservation, right? And they're just like, I want to get in. So what those guys have to do, they have to bid if they want to jump in front of the line.
Sure.
Well, that business is making Panama a ton of money, man. The cost of those bids are now in the millions. That used to be like 200,000 across the canal, 300,000. No, not anymore. In the millions, Willie. The bidding starts around there.
What it's worth to somebody to get through the canal and the value that the canal offers, that they're willing to pay that kind of money to use it now, not wait, 3 or 4 weeks.
Absolutely, man. So this brings me to another story. Panama, the hub, right? The hub of airports, the hub of, the ships, the hub of ports. Okay. Well, now we're the hub, Willie, of undersea cables. Listen, most countries have one, right? That go through it. They come, connect their countries, and then they keep going out wherever they go next, right? That's typical. Panama has, Willie, ready for this? 8 major cables go through Panama.
That's amazing.
And that's why it's unbelievable. Panama's internet's not way faster. But yes, they've got 8. Google's the last one connecting Santo Domingo, Panama, Chile. So through Panama, Willie, in the region, 100% of the internet goes through Panama, of the entire region. Okay. Yeah. 97% of all telephone communication goes through Panama.
Absolutely.
90% of all the data goes through Panama.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Panama is not only the hub of the world, but boy, are all the spies going to be showing up there like they have been forever. You know, when we talk about the Tivoli, remember how we talked about the bar? Back then, there were spies, you know?
Yeah, that was a hot place, man.
That was a hot place. Well, it looks like Panama hasn't changed. So I guess it's going to be our job to find out where all these guys hang out, because these guys all hang out, you know? They all know each other. Yeah. So that's what's kind of cool. Something else kind of cool out of Panama, you know, before I get to the Chinese thing, Costa Rica and Panama, you know, Willie, for the last 10 years or so, they've been at, you know, this tremendous commerce war, right? You know, the Costa Ricans want to sell milk in Panama and ice cream and all that. And the Panamans like, F that, you know, we make our own, you're not selling that. And they're going back and forth. They've been fighting for 10 years, right? Right. Then they brought in a new president. I'm going to make this, you know, I'm going to fix this. Molino, I'm going to fix this too. You know, and we're like all over here cheering that finally Costa Rica and Panama getting their act together. So they had this big meeting of all their top guys. So guess what the agreement was? They agreed to disagree some more.
Exactly. Hey, can we meet again to disagree? All right. Hey, thanks. Good meeting. Yeah. Hey, take care, man.
Fun over world commerce. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. You know, so Costa Rica and Panama, man, they're not going to settle this, man. They're not, nope, we're not letting you sell up. They're not going to let us sell our stuff there. They're not going to we're not going to let them sell their stuff here. Hey, Eric. So that's kind of a cool thing. So instead of, you know, going back and forth, spending money, arguing, they're just like, F it. Let's just agree to disagree. We'll talk next.
But it's nice to see Panama in a position where they can, you know, tell people, hey, man, I'm not going to be pushed around. You know, we're going to.
Well, especially with that new railroad coming. Yeah, you know, we're going to be moving some merchandise.
Their platform has just been elevated, and they're just it's cool to see.
Yeah. It's cool to see. Yeah. Because Costa Rica, that's always been our competition. So, well, anyways, that's kind of cool. Now, listen, guys, let's get to that Chinese thing. So, you know, like I told you, a bunch of, you know, we've been always updating you on all the things that have been happening. And the last couple of weeks, you know, they shook hands, Willie. All right, no more. We're not gonna continue to, investigate your boats and all this stuff that we've been telling you. And they kind of shook hands, and you know, they agreed that Chinese are going to be bidding on our projects, etc. Right. So what happened since that time, Willie? The Chinese, Persian Gulf, right? You know, nobody can go through, right? Either way.
Sure.
But the Chinese have been getting through, right? You always see it on the news. Oh, China, one boat got through, two boats got through. So guess what?
And they also have oil pipelines going up into Asia and going that way.
Okay, all right, but let's get to the ships. Yes. Get to the ships. So you know, you always see in the news 1 or 2 ships snuck through, right? This and that.
Right.
Well, guess why? Because Chinese now are using Panamanian flagged ships because they knew the U.S. wouldn't attack them. Until this week, where the U.S. finally said, you know what, enough that. Sorry, Panama, we got to do this. Boom, and they had to shoot a missile into a Panamanian flagship.
On Panama, you know.
I know, but this is what China's doing to Panama.
Right.
You know, they're using their ship flag to break the law, and then, you know, they're going to be attacked. They're
trying to circumvent that, yeah. Don't do us a hint, man. You know, nothing surprises me with those guys, man.
I trust Molino will find a diplomatic way out of it, where they'll shake hands again and, you know, drink some sake or something. But yeah, that's what's going on there, guys. So I enjoy that news, even though it's not doing us too good. Well, speaking of Chinese, you know, they designed the first train that was, you know, the big bullet train, and then has been redesigned. And a new design team has come in. Mm-hmm. So, Willie, like we mentioned last week, but, you know, we kind of had to rush through that week because, again, we were having these issues. But this week, I'm going to be more specific on that news. Well, the first phase, Willie, were you able to upload that plan that I sent you on WhatsApp?
It's okay, but give me a second and I will. No, I can pull it up here in just a moment.
Because that way you can see all the stops. So on the first phase, which is going to be built pretty soon and hopefully work at the same time as as what they call the Línea 3, the third line, which is the one that goes from Albrook all the way out to Chorrera. Well, not to Chorrera yet, but it'll get there soon. It's almost to Chorrera. If you can put that map up, Willie, we can talk.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah.
Where is it?
So the Línea 3, as you know, is tied to the bridge. So there's not going to be no train until that bridge is built. So in the meantime, this new railroad is going to build a railroad bridge next to the one up there that crosses over by Summit. I forget what they call that bridge. I think it's actually called Bridge Number 3. You know, the bridge number 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Because the last one that they're building now is Bridge Number 4. So if you can see in the map, the green or yellow line is going north and south. Guys, I'm colorblind, so I don't know exactly what color that is.
Yeah, no, it's yellow. That's the one that's
Yellow.
like the traditional Panama Railroad route.
Right,
more
that's
or
a
less.
traditional Panama Railroad. So if you see where the railroad kind of bumps out, it says Ciudad de la Salud. All right, that's where the bridge is going to be. So there's going to be 3 stations on the east side, you know, where we all live. The main station, the big terminal, is going to be in Albrook. And then it's going to go north, and the first stop north will be Corzel for all the everything that's going on there. You know, because there's going to be a port there as well. Plus, you know, there's a lot of Zonian housing there and a lot of stuff going on there. And then a third stop, Willie, on the east side of the canal will be at the SCN, right in front of SCN, which today they call it Ciudad de la Salud, or the Health City, because it's a ginormous hospital. Government hospital with the latest technology that is
now,
there.
Is that
right
inside part of Clayton also?
Yeah, which is right at the entrance to the Miraflores Locks. That big field there. Okay, that is the humongous hospital. So between the Miraflores Locks and SCM building, in between there, all that area. Okay. So that's where it's going to cross over, guys, and it's going to head up to Arraijan, as you can see it there. But if you notice the city of Arraijan, you can see all the houses. The train is like north of it, like in the countryside of Arraijan and Chorrera. It's not really going through the main city. Well, the red dotted there, that's the Línea 3. So that will be going through the main city. But the big train won't, Willie. So we're talking about the big train. So as you see, there's a line that branches off towards the Pacific Ocean, and you'll see there says Terminal Rodman Terminal. That is a future expansion that's going to go all the way out to Howard. And then on that side, you know, it's going to be heading south along, you know, the canal, and its first stop's going to be in Rodman, you know, because there's a lot of naval activity going on there. And then the second stop, Willie, it's going to be in Farfan. Well, I think actually it goes to Howard and then Farfan. I don't know. Can you guys see the colors? Puerto Balboa. I think Howard and then Farfan. So Farfan, there's a lot of beaches out there and hotels. So they're going to have the train's going to go all the way out there. But I think what's going out there actually, Willie, is going to be more ports, more deep sea ports. It's going to in the future. Sure. So the train's going to go to Howard, Farfan, and Rodman. Those 3. That's in the future expansion.
Yeah, and I would imagine a rail investment of this kind, you're relying a lot on freight more so than passengers. So it makes sense.
Oh, this is a freight train. Ports.
Yeah,
this is a freight train for sure. This is to move freight. But then again, we're going to be able to go to Chiriquí real fast for, you know, just get on a plane. On the train and go to Chiriquí, you know, the way they do in Japan and stuff like that. So it's going to be pretty cool. So back to the train. The first stop will be in Arraijan, which is up in the northern part of Arraijan. If you can see on the map, I don't know if you can tell which it's the city and which is, you know, the green is, you know, the boonies, and then the other concrete colors where the city is. So the train is actually up north, away from people. So that there indicates it's not really meant for, you know, people to commute to work. That's what La Línea 3 is for. But I'm sure they could. Probably cost more. And then there'll be a second stop on this on this first phase. There's actually 3 stops. There's Chorrera, which Línea 3 is not there yet. The Japanese are looking to fund and build it all the way out there. And then from there, it goes to Capira. Now, Capira, Willie, is, like we mentioned before, it's going to be the hub of this part of the train. There's going to be more hubs along the way up. There's going to be one in Santiago, and I'm sure one up in Chiriquí eventually. But for the first phase, the first hub is in Capira, that's where they're going to have a free zone. You know, you're going to be.
I imagine eventually you have a branch line will come out from there as well. I would assume.
Oh yeah. It'll from there. It'll keep going. Phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, like so.
Right. But right now, a branch line that would go like north and south up into the interior.
At that point, yes. But I think the one that goes more north and south is going to be the one in Santiago. And then because that's where then it takes off towards the Peninsula de Azuero or Veraguas or keep going up towards Chiriquí.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good
So
point.
that's going to be the big one in phase 2. But in phase 1, this one, really because it's so close to all the terminals and stuff, they're going to have an aduana there. So let's say Costa Rica, Nicaragua, whoever is sending their semis down, they unload there, and then from there they can export. But they've got to go through customs. So they're going to have a customs office there as well as a free zone. And it's going to be, like I said, the hub of all this, this first phase. And so, guys, that's going to be happening almost pretty soon. I mean, they've got the studies already underway and I think completed. So they're going to be naming a contractor anytime. And we'll see both those trains hopefully operate at the same time. Now, one of the things we want to do when you take those trains, you want to drink some Panama beer, Willie, and eat some, good Panamanian food. So this brings me to this other story regarding Panama beer. Panama beer has been around forever, right? And since we've known it, as I've known it, they've had 2 different owners, right? The original owners, and then they sold it to the Colombians. Well, they just sold it again, $98 million. Heineken bought them, Willie. I think, didn't Heineken owe them before or have a stake in one of the breweries down there?
I think they had a stake in it because I know, on their website, it's part of the Heineken portfolio is, Cervecería del Barú.
Okay, so they own the Barú. Now they own Panama. The Cervecería Panama. So listen to this. The whole world has been in a decline. So Heineken has been laying off people worldwide. Like 3,000 people have been laid off because, booze are going down. Well, Panama is one of the only places in the world where it's actually had a 6% increase in booze consumption. So nobody in Panama got laid off. So that was kind of
right?
Cool. Go Panama, man. Drink
Good
yourself cervezas, man. We could drink some cervezas down there, man. Not only is our cervezas good, guys, so is our coffee. And just recently, we're going to test this screen again, all right? So just recently, guys, I believe last week or 2 weeks ago, they had the 30th, 30, anniversary of the Best of Panama coffee. It's a coffee competition. The whole world watches this. Right. This is where the guys show. And we have a new winner. This Hacienda Estate always won year after year after. Well, now I believe there's some Zonian connection here because a lot of Zonians know this family. The Lamastis. The Lamastis family estate won the championship this year. So congratulations to them. I understand that there is some Zonian connection there with the Lamastis, and so right on, man. New champion. Panama still leading in the best coffees of the world. Colombia has the reputation of coffee, growing region, but man, we have the championships.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's for sure, man.
Kidding.
Yeah, U.S. Embassy news. Man, they've been involved with a lot of the education of Panamanians, and I really appreciate that because I've never really seen that from any embassy, or it's never been announced so much. Well, they had recently they had this thing called Universidad Freedom 250, University Freedom 250. I might be backwards. Freedom University 250. But it was a way for U.S. schools to come to Panama, like we should do it in Balboa High School,
right?
And then everybody would come and sign up for to get into school. So the embassy's doing that in Panama now. So you want to study in the States, you want to find a scholarship, you go to these Freedom 250 things that they're doing once a year, I guess, and get yourself U.S. educated. Man, I wish they had all this stuff when we were around, man. These are some great programs they're having down there. All right. So far, how do you guys think of the bochincha? Pretty good?
Not bad if you'd sit still so we keep getting that triangle.
I know, man. Me sit still. Someday, one day, I know I will. I've been promising my mom that I'm going to sit still one day.
Yeah, right.
At this point, let's just get into our restaurant recommendations. Now, these are all for Coronado. Why? Because, a lot of us spend a lot of time there when we go back to Panama. And Willie, if you look at the map, I don't know if you can upload maps, Willie. It would be nice so that way we can pinpoint these restaurants, even though all of us have gone to Coronado and it'll be easy to find. But nonetheless, the first one, which these three we mentioned real quick last week, but this week we're going to talk. Remember, last week we didn't have a bochinche; we just had to deal with that technicality. And so the first one that I want to recommend from Chef Chaz, we have three chefs doing recommendation. We have Chef Chaz, that's a little tongue twister. We have Chef Bourdain, and we have Chef Paolo. All Zonians. You guys get to guess who they are.
Okay.
But they give great recommendation. These guys are into food. They know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for. And they love giving us their recommendations. Tonight we're going with Chef Chaz from three recommendations from Coronado. The one that I really liked, Willie, was Don Chacho's, which is a chicken place. And by the way, these places are all dog friendly now. So if you have a pet, a cat, people are not into cats, but if you have a dog and you want to take them to the restaurant, this place will allow it. And it's just off the highway, guys. When you come off the highway, you're going to Coronado, that main road. Well, now they have a El Rey there, super grocery store, real big. Just past that, past El Rey on the left side of the road, you'll see Don Chacho. And it's a great chicken place. And then as a fourth recommendation, and it's only because it's right next to Don Chacho's, if you feel like eating fried fish, because everything in Panama is freshly caught. I mean, it goes from the water to your
here's that
plate.
Don Chacho's right here.
There's Don Chacho, so it's just a regular little spot there, like on a strip
Because
mall.
it's right off the highway. You come off the main highway, you turn into Coronado like you always do. It'll be on the left-hand side.
On the left-hand side, just past the
Supermercado.
Yep, right over there. It is right there. That spot right there. No, you passed it. Oh, well, that's back down
kind of
Coronado,
so you're
right there.
kind of familiar with the area.
Yeah.
But,
so if you want to get good chicken, that's the place. And then to the left of that, across that street, there's a place that has the fried fish. So you can either get barbecued chicken on one side or fried fish on the other, which is it's called The Bench. And it's actually also recommended. But, we only require three. So you had to throw in a fourth. Only because they were so cool. Oh, that's a great map there. Willie, do they have an off-ramp from that highway to Coronado? Or do you got to turn left and cross that major highway?
That I couldn't tell you.
Anybody out there been to Coronado lately?
I haven't been to.
Yeah, I haven't been in a while. Well, since 2022, so 4 years.
So there's the bench right there. Okay, Don Chacho's is right here. Here's the highway, the Pan American Highway, and there's the entrance to Coronado.
Right, that's the main entrance.
Different than when I do it. So
there's a lot going on. Wait, if you blow it up, you'll see that Coronado and Gorgona are almost together now, like one ginormous city.
Right, it's a big metropolis. I did see that.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. All right, let's go to the next recommendation, which is up that main street, which I believe is called Eisman. Because he's the founder.
This is Coronado. Look at Coronado. Here, guys. Look at this.
Look at Coronado, and look at Gorgona right on top. I mean, look. There's Gorgona right there. Look at that. Looks like one ginormous metropolis.
You can get between one and the other right here. Look.
Yeah.
There's two roads right there. You get from one to the other.
Oh my God, guys, and that's all expat. Not everybody, but a vast majority of people there are expat.
A lot of them.
That's the expat community. Yes, that's why there's so many great restaurants. Now,
what's the third one?
The third one is Luna Rosa. Now, this is up that main road. And if you remember where the condos were, there was like a turnoff there that would go to the right. Okay, right there is where Luna Rosa is. And they've got that flatbread pizza that people love because it's really, it's non-fattening, right? So you're not eating all that dough. And that's what they're known for. They got good pasta as well. They say that, they don't have any specific dish that is just spectacular. All the dishes are spectacular. So whatever you order there, you're going to really, really like it. And they got the flatbread pizza. That's what they're, known for there. Luna Rosa. And it looks pretty cool. And then before that, Willie, there's a turn. If you remember, there's a McTaggart's live there. You turn to the left off that same main road. There's a place, if you want to eat just burgers and French fries, old school Zonian type, a great burger. There's a place there called Picasso's. So it's if you go back to that corner at the condo and then you go back towards the entrance, there's the first. You'll see the first right there. There it is.
Oh, this side maybe. No, there's a concrete mixture there. Maybe that. Oh, the Picasso's.
Yeah, I know everybody builds big concrete, but there it's a great place for burgers. There's the spot, right Picasso's. There's the spot you want to stop. Also dog friendly. Lot of.
Look, it's got an outdoor cafe area to sit as well. Yeah. And if you want to really brave the the elements, sit out on the side of the road there. Hopefully you don't get hit, but you can sit on the edge of the road there.
Man, you can't go too fast there.
Want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope not.
Well, those are the recommendations, guys. If you're in Coronado, those are some great spots. Once again, Don Chacho's at the entrance with the bench right next to it. Luna Rosa for some good pasta and flatbread pizza, and then Picasso's for all your.
Look, they got some pizza there. Right on.
Yeah. But they're mostly for their burgers and their chips and stuff like that.
Okay.
The pizza. Well, depending on what type of pizza you like, that flatbread seems to be pretty popular. Or in San Francisco, the Detroit style pizza is popular right now. The square pizzas, real thick dough.
For some reason, that's real popular. Yeah, I guess that makes sense in Panama. We have empanadas, but okay, right on, cool.
Yeah, that's our recommendation, guys. Next, our next Bochincha segment, we'll do Chef Paolo. Also recommending 3 spots in Coronado because that's where all the restaurants are, guys. And we'll bring you guys up with that, and then we'll come back to Chef Bourdain for some more city restaurants. But the city, Willie, we have recommended the city, but we've recommended the award-winning chef restaurant, and those are like the super expensive one. But if you feel like spending some money and you're in the city, don't forget Fonda Lo Que Hay award winner, number 65 in Latin America. Food that speaks PTY. That's what they're known for. So they have all the like arroz con pollo, the whole Panamanian dishes, but on an upscale. And then there's La Tapa del Coco, number 74 in Latin America, Afro-Panamanian. And then there's Intimo, creative cuisine, expensive, number 83 in Latin America. So if you guys, if you want to spend some big money, but Panama's known now, Willie, for their food. So these are those restaurants.
It is a foodie destination now.
Correct. These are those restaurants. Yeah. The first recommendations are for the expat, for the Zonians, or us guys. The guys with the, you want to spend $20 and have an amazing meal. Okay. Well, these are the more expensive. You're going to spend over $100.
Oh yeah, this is upscale eating. This is good fine dining.
But and make sure you get your reservations. But these are one of the reasons why Panama is on the food map. And of course, there's always Austin Mamas and what's the taco place called? Nachos Tacos? No. What's our Zonian taco place? Magoo's Taco. Yes. Yeah. We always recommend them. And Gamboa.
It's always been, it seems like, and that's kind of a human thing, that anywhere that you have an area that's considered a crossroads, you seem to have a lot of good eating because, that's something that's very cultural is food. And so a place like Panama that's had people transiting from all over the world for hundreds of years, it makes sense that you're going to have some great cuisine here because you're sampling cuisine from all over the world, from
and they're fusing them. They're fusing them, which is probably the reason why they're on the map. It's because of that fusing.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So right on Panama, keep it up. Their numbers for tourism are up. They're still not with Santo Domingo, but they're catching up to Costa Rica in numbers. They'll get there. Panama's we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, Panama's a lot more diversified. You know, these other countries that don't have much to offer, they go all in with their tourism, and so they attract a lot of numbers. You know, there's nothing really else going on in Santo Domingo. Costa Rica, same thing. But Panama has so much more to offer that, you know, while they have a robust tourism industry, it's not the only game in town, and so you're not going to have the government.
They got a medical
tourism like these other. Correct. You know,
they got medical tourism.
Jamaica, the government spends so much money on tourism because that's their primary source of income, probably. So
you're right about that. Hawaii like that too, but Panama's got the medical, and they also have all the conventions. I mean, there's always major regional conventions down there. So right on, man, right on. We'd love informing you guys of Panama. Hey, Mr. Jim Bradley, you haven't seen you in a while.
Good to
see you,
Jim.
sir.
Hope all's well with you.
We always miss you. We miss your hellos.
Indeed.
Bueno, Willie, sadly, that is all oh no, Willie, you know we should talk about? I know we're doing construction today, but we haven't really talked about what architectural building we want to do. So let's ask our viewers, you know, what are the things we have in mind? If there's any building or any town you want us to talk about, but one of the ones we have in mind are Balboa, because, you know, of course, that's an important town. But also the bases of Balboa, which in Will's and I's opinion are Amador and Quarry Heights. We've done some research on both of those bases, and there's some fun stuff about both of them.
Yeah.
So let us know which of the two you guys want to hear, and me, or we can bring in Matt Tomlin if he's ready to talk about all his Zonian art, which is a lot of buildings, you know, mostly the homes.
Correct.
He's done so many of them, and panoramic. He gets commissions to do like panoramic views, which he painted probably one of the last pictures. If they demo the train station, one of the last paintings with the train station and not that new freeway that's going to come across now.
Correct.
That you'll never,
because that's changing the landscape completely.
So. Well, yeah, well, it's not. It's. Well, the thing about reason why we want to do Balboa,
it's the one on the show here is the Balboa you're going to remember is the one on our show, the pictures on this show, because it's not the same Balboa anymore.
So that's why, But Willie, Balboa, the town of Balboa really goes from, what do you call that? That main highway that went next to the Balboa High School? Roosevelt. Yeah, so Balboa was really designed from Roosevelt over to about Barnaby-ish, maybe one car street over. That was really Balboa. So,
the other area was Balboa Heights, which is considered,
or Balboa Flats, right? Isn't that where the terminal was?
The flats were considered. I think the flats was out by Gavlin in that area.
Okay.
And then Balboa Heights was because
where the ports were.
Think about it. Well, no, Balboa Heights was that area where the DeLucas lived, Las Cruces Street, Carr Street, all that, because it's right between, Ancon Hill, and then, of course, you have the admin and that hill, that Balboa Elementary and all that. So it was called Balboa Heights, was that area there. And then, of course, Ancon on the other side of it. But I always knew the Balboa Flats was like that Gavlin area, the other side of Balboa Road, I guess. About St. Mary's
I've got a lot of
and all
notes
that.
on Balboa. So you guys want to do Balboa? We'll do a nice architecture on Balboa next. Yeah, okay. Well, Balboa it is. And then after that,
the thing about Balboa is, you think about it. Balboa went through a radical change. Where it completely redesigned the whole Balboa Heights area. They took out roads and everything and redid that entire area. What we knew and what we ran around looking at was not the same as it was in the 1930s. It was a totally different Balboa Heights area. Totally different type of structures, buildings, the roads, the maps. It was, they ripped the whole thing out and started over, man. It was, they didn't modify it. They completely redid it.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I kept from my research was from the architect. Actually from the administrator at the time, Stevens. Balboa was designed, Willie, as a carefully orchestrated town where architecture reinforced community order and American identity in the tropics.
How about that?
That's a quote. Yeah, I love that quote too. That's why I wrote it down like, yep, I'll be using that a couple of times on the show.
Oh, yeah.
So Balboa it is. I've got a bunch of notes on
Balboa.
Balboa.
Yeah, look at Richard Grimson's chiming in. Balboa Heights was also the housing around the admin building up to Quarry Heights Gate. Yeah, absolutely.
Richard.
Yeah, that was everything on the other side of that. My Gorgas was considered Ancon, and this part was considered Balboa Heights, and then you got Corey Heights in here, which
Richard needs to come on the show too whenever you're ready, Richard. Well, not this month, next month that we're open. Well, we're open every month, so just let us know when you're ready. Otherwise, we'll continue selecting our favorite spots. So far, we've done Tivoli, Clubhouse, the Balboa Theater last week, which was a great show.
Sure was.
And we've done, as I said, the Clubhouse, Tivoli, and the theater. I think we did one more. Oh, yeah. David did the Civil Affairs building.
Right.
So we've
I
covered
guess the other
nice.
obvious one as far as a building itself that's iconic in the zone is the admin building, of course, and that one, of course, it's got its prominence, its preeminence as the zoning. It was no coincidence that it was one of the first ones to be built there, right? It was kind of established the landscape.
A lot of things happened that year. I mean, the canal opened, the admin building opened, that train station opened.
Absolutely.
But the Tivoli was already open. Willie, when we talked about the Tivoli, man, remember we said the reason why they built it was they were the Stevens didn't want all the debauchery going on. They want all the workers
wanted people home.
So I was just happy to get this article that I was reading, and these were the 4 debauchery places in Panama that Stevens didn't want all our guys to go party at. Hotel, and these places are probably still there because I remember all these names. Hotel Metropole was one of them. Hotel Normandy was another one. Hotel La Central, which was probably the hottest one. And there was this one cafe called Panazone. Instead of Canal Zone, Panazone, which was very, very popular. These were the 4 most popular places during 1904, 5, 6, something like that. So like the French were staying
unwind,
there.
Man. You're working that Culebra Cut all day, man. You got to unwind.
And that was the place that Stevens said, no, we need to build clubhouses and hotels to keep everybody from there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Richard said September it is. Okay, cool.
September, all right. All right, you're in.
And check out Eric's got a good one here, the Governor's House. That's a great one to do.
Yes, and you know why, Willie? Because it comes from like the clubhouse and the Tivoli. It's that type of architecture. It comes from the old construction days. And another town that I really would love to look into, Willie, is Red Tank. Because it seems to be like the Balboa of the canal days, the construction days.
It absolutely was. Remember, where we grew up here, what you're looking at, that scene behind us there, that was all swamp between that hill there, Sosa Hill, and then to the left, if you're looking at this standing up there, look to the left is Ancon Hill, that was all swamp and river area there. There was no housing there. There was never a thought of it, and you think about it, somebody back in those days, prior to the canal construction, would look at that and go, yeah, this will never be inhabited. But little did they realize that, we're about to cut through a mountain and we're going to have a whole bunch of dirt and rock and spoil. Guess what? We could make an entire flat area to build an entire town in out of basically free land that nobody wanted. Because
that's Balboa and a whole bunch of other places. You know what? Clayton, too. And I'm going to mention something there in a minute, Willie. It's going to make you happy. Well, guys, speaking of Red Tank, and last week we also mentioned Lakeview Golf Course. Well, I got some info on that, Willie. They just celebrated an anniversary, the golf course, July 20th. But and the reason I'm bringing it up, it was actually started in 1962. So the reason I'm bringing it up, Willie, because it was the former ball field for the Red Tank community. So that's where. So now we know where Red Tank is. I mean, last week we kind of talked about it where it was out there in Chiva Trail, but now you know exactly what
Yeah, my dad had mentioned that to me. Because the police lodge was on that road that we would go back there.
So that's Red Tank. That was the Balboa. Well, then, a bunch of the superintendent, Willie, of the grounds and branch division of the Canal Zone. I mean, I guess these are the guys that cut our grass and took care of all the landscaping and stuff like that.
Right.
The superintendent of that and the former governor, W.E. Potter, those guys were really into golf, and they started their own, and as well as the people from Paraíso, because there's two of the original alumni of or original members are Mr. Blades and Mr. Holder, two very popular names in Paraíso, because they were great. Their kids were great football players that played with us. But anyways, they got permission to use the ballpark and turn it into a nine hole golf par 3. And I'm not sure if it's still there today, but it was when I was growing up, because I used to stop there for shark meat and crystals, since that's what me and my buddy Jerry Curtis were into. Everybody was drinking Panamas and Soberanas. Jerry and I were into crystals. Anyway, guys, so that's what we have there. And what else do I got for Butch? That's it, man. It's all my Butch.
Interesting. That was a good one. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. The only other one that I thought you were going to touch on, and you saw a lot of the postings on it in social media over the last couple of days. There's been a lot of military training exercises taking place in that entire region, and Panamax is front and center with it. But in fact, Pete Hegg said the defense secretary was down there, and
yes, he was, Willie.
Some interesting
statements. But listen, so the deal is like this, and through our chat group, we've gotten a lot of help to get this news out there. The United States just can't leave the canal, guys. You just can't. It's just way too valuable. And then, we've all grown up with the drug cartel. We've all grown up with, all the crime that they commit and all the judges and presidents and everybody they've murdered. And we've been living with this BS forever, right, guys? Well, now that's coming to an end, right? Because the president of Ecuador has taken them on. Now the new president of Colombia has taken them on. And of course, we know about Venezuela. So with all this happening, it's obviously going to push those bad guys into Panama, because we don't really have an army, right? We just have our security forces that protect there, and they're not an army.
Correct.
So to prevent that, to prepare for that, that's why we're having so many rotating exercises and training, is to always have U.S. presence there in case something happens where our forces cannot handle, a large influx of narco-terrorists and et cetera, et cetera. So, Willie, the reason why we're having all these Panamaxes and all these stuff is to have continuous U.S. presence in Panama without messing with the sovereignty and all that, because that's a big issue in Panama. But the Secretary of Defense said, listen, and I understand what he meant. He says, we're here and we're not leaving. And I understand that to mean is, for the last 20 or 30 years since the U.S. has been involved with like Afghanistan war and Iraq war,
right,
they kind of forgot about Latin America. They didn't really forget about them, but if you remember, Willie, during that period, Latin America was transferring from dictatorship to democracy.
Correct.
So it was a good time to let these young democracies grow on their own. That's my opinion. All right. So the United States kind of, ignored the area. So what I understand the statement to say was, we're here to stay, is that we're here to invest in your education, invest into your communications, invest into your infrastructure. We're here as your brothers, not we're here as a military
right.
Base. We're never going to leave and we're going to take over. No, he totally meant it like I'm saying. And I understood it that way. We're here to do business with you guys. We are not going to abandon you. And it's for a simple reason.
Sure.
The canal's too strategically important for the U.S. commerce and the U.S. military. So, which brings me to I have very good friends in Panama till today, and a lot of them are still in politics, like Fulo Linares, very good friend of mine. And his father was also very into politics. So, he's always on radio, Willie, and one of the big conversations that they're always having is, these U.S. troops staying and the neutrality treaty, and there's talk about the neutrality treaty has run its course because, a lot of countries are joining in the neutrality with Panama, right? Respecting them as like a Switzerland. But then when I had this conversation with him, I said, look, the only reason why these people respect us and don't invade us like they did, like they've always have, right? We've always been conquered by the Spaniards and then Gran Colombia and then the Colombians and et cetera, right? It's because of the U.S. presence, the U.S. military's there. So no matter
100%,
even if you're neutral,
in the 70s and 80s, there was the insurgencies and civil wars all the way from El Salvador, Guatemala, down into Colombia,
Nicaragua,
every
yeah.
country there. And the one place that those people knew not to start stirring up trouble was in Panama, because there was
US
way too
presence.
many American troops there.
Correct, which they
100%.
could have easily been there and, you know, cause havoc. So that's kind of what's going
It's a
on there,
deterrent.
Willie. Yeah, so deterrent.
Yeah.
So you know, my conversation with him was, listen, so they're saying no, because if we're neutral and nobody will attack us, and I said, listen, and, oh no, he says this way. You know, Pami's are saying that if they're neutral, and then if the United States has a problem with another country, Panama won't be a target. And I said, you're very wrong. No matter what, that canal, even if Panama's neutral or aligned with China or aligned
no
with
such thing with
anybody
Panama
else,
when it comes
right,
to
they're
that.
going to attack it because it's going to hurt the United States commerce and military movements. So
Or the world.
so you have two evils. And then Fulvio Linares mentioned that his dad wrote about this. And he said, listen, between the two evils, we have to stick with the U.S. neutrality treaty we have, because that's what guarantees our neutrality.
Right.
So-
Which in turn guarantees their safety, because if somebody wants to take over the canal to run and control
be the
commerce and shipping,
narco-terrorists.
the U.S., or let's assume in a strange world or not so strange world, China decides to push more influence and try and really gain control here and suddenly really take over. The United States is like, we got to maintain the neutrality of this canal that was written in the treaties there, so it's time to go. So they have an obligation to do this anyway, and that in itself is a reason to say, hey, your own treaty obligates us to be here, and we can't do it effectively from a base up in Louisiana. It's got to be here.
Correct. So it's a tricky, and you know, my opinion, he did a good job, even though the media hasn't really come out and really destroyed him or you know, accused the U.S. of taking over. But you can almost see that it wants to go there. But the people,
Right.
the message is kind of clear. Listen, we're here. We're not staying, but we're going to be rotating. We're going to be training in the jungle. We're going to be using Sherman. You know, we're going to protect the canal.
Right,
per
and
treaty.
it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, Willie. Absolutely.
You know, it's
All right.
an
Well,
absolute win for everybody.
Yeah, well, last week, Willie, I mentioned this beer done in Panama, but now I got a better camera. We can see it. Wait, I got to go that way.
Right, there you go.
Madre Tambor, right? Is that what that says?
Madre Tambor.
Madre Tambor. Well, they're selling this in like Bevmo here. Bevmo is like a big booze place. You know, you want to go buy booze, like a big warehouse full of booze, right?
Interesting.
And they sell. So I went there and I go, hey, you guys have any Panama beer? I knew they didn't, but what the hell, right?
Shot in the dark.
Hey, yeah. Do you guys have any Panama beer? Guys like, oh yeah, we got this beer from a
You're like, what?
microbrewery in Panama called Casa Bruja. So you guys in Panama, go check that place. These guys are selling mass quantities in the United States. That's how good they are.
Right on.
And they have two types: the German lager and a coffee based beer. That is really the popular one, the ones that sells out. That one sold out, and I had to deal with this other, the German Hell style, Helles.
Right. Okay.
So right on, man. Right on the Panama, whoever that is, good job. The fact they got that contract, excellent. But look, they're taking advantage of that trade deal we have.
Correct. That's
You know, that's
exactly
smart, man. Yeah, put it on a
100%.
freaking ship, send it to the United States, where we got these
100%.
guys.
Yeah.
Willie,
No,
man, let's get into your
100%.
segment. That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Thanks
no,
for that,
it's-
man. Let me do my boat cheating as
that was
long
good.
as I
Some
could.
Good stuff
Yeah.
there. You know, obviously, before we do that, though, we're gonna pay some bills here. But let's talk to our friend Gamboa and some Howler Monkey sauce. Which, by the way, I had some of that earlier. I was eating. It was funny when we had the white screens and everything, and then you had the map up there. I was like, oh, that's perfect time for you to mute and eat. And I was
Eat your
sitting there with
dinner.
have some dinner with some good hot Howler Monkey hot sauce on it. It was good, man. But anyway, let's say hello to Gamboa here and move right along.
Howler Monkey Sauce sent me to the jungles of Panama in search of their new spokesperson, and let's see if we find them.
Hey, listen, you don't need to keep looking for a spokesperson. You found me. I love this Howler Monkey hot sauce.
Wow. Okay, and what's your name?
They call me Gamboa up here in these trees.
Roll camera and action.
This one, the Amarillo, It's going to be amazing on chicken, trust me.
Do you know a howler monkey who can describe the sweet heat of our original with authentic ají chombo peppers, or the fresh punch of verde where habanero warmth meets crisp bell pepper? How about the bold tang of Amarillo, yellow Scotch bonnets blended with mustard seeds? And of course, our hot, the same great flavor as original, with red habaneros for that fire. Our sauces are all natural, no preservatives, gluten-free, pure flavor and pure fire. Are you the next Howler Monkey spokesperson?
I keep on zoning. I don't know why I got to fix that. I don't know why that thing keeps popping up there. But anyhow, so let's move right along and jump into our excavation segment today. What we're going to talk about today is the Gatun machine here. And what the machine that we're talking about here is actually the Gatun Dam, not the Gatun locks. We've talked about the locks a little bit. We've actually had Jim Duffus join us, who actually worked in the locks there and kind of gave us the rundown of how the locks worked, who did what. It was interesting, some of the things that we learned about those locks. For example, I never realized that they actually had somebody walking the whole time next to the ship, and they kind of were in charge of that ship, and which made sense when you explained it, that they're looking at everything. They've got a radio.
Yeah, one of the top guys.
Yeah.
Rain or shine, too.
That's it. Exactly right, man. It's kind of a cool thing, If you have that gig, you kind of got to feel good that you're, that's my ship, man. I'm in charge of that ship. I'm walking that thing from, start to finish. But anyway,
it's 40 walks a day, man.
Yeah. Right. That is cool. That's a pretty cool gig, and it's got to be interesting to what they have to know and understand and prepare for. The size of the ship, the weight, what is carried, and all these things. Maybe weather, if wind's going to be pushing it, and all that good stuff. So it's cool, man. That was an interesting perspective, which is what we get a lot of out of this show, right? We learn a lot of things that we took for granted. We never bothered to take a good look at it. It was just there, We grew up next to it, so we didn't really pay attention, and now we're like, man, I wish I had really paid attention to that. I wish I had asked one of my parents' friends to, hey, take me to go check this out, right? Because that was the main thing, that we all grew up with somebody that worked in one of these places that probably could have, given us a tour and, hey, this is how this works and all that good stuff. Because, a lot of it we experienced doing like the summer work and gigs like that, where you got to, like your sister got to walk down in the culverts down there in the locks. It's pretty cool, having that experience down there, and it's a shame that we didn't realize it at the time what we had in front of us, and but at least now we've got this opportunity to reminisce and learn all about it. So that's what we're going to do. Talk about the Gatun, the dam. Okay, this, like I said at the beginning of the show, is probably the biggest key to making this canal work. Was the dam there that dammed up the Chagres River, middle of the rainforest. It produces, just ridiculous amounts of water, and very hard to tame. You could have a very calm river one day, and 12 hours later, you've got 40-foot floods and just raging rivers down there, and so it's very hard to control. And truly, when they finished it, it created, as you're going to see on the screen here, it created this Gatun Lake, which, when you look at the pathway there, from up at the top where the ship exits the locks and then enters the Culebra Cut, that's over half of the length of the canal was that Gatun Lake. And it really does also give you more of a respect for what the job was to cut through that Culebra Cut, because that took almost 10 years to cut through that. And it was just that one little strip of land. The majority of it was basically build a dam, some locks up on the north side. On the south side, we'll build a culvert dam at the beginning where the Chagres and Balboa is, and just going to let this thing fill up with water over time. And more than half our canal is done basically by Mother Nature itself. But yet you still had to cut that other area there. So the key to it was, again, to build this dam. And to me, one of the most interesting things about this that I learned from researching this is, we've all seen pictures of, the Gatun Dam, the locks and everything. And in fact, I'm going to pull one up now just to show you something, just to kind of make a point here. And I should have had it on when I was ready before, but hold on, let me just get one here, because you truly don't realize how large that Gatun Dam is, right? And so, for example, you know what? I can do that Google Earth. That's what I'm doing here in just a moment. Yeah, Google Maps. Here we go. One we were looking at earlier.
Yeah, I love Google Maps. Or Google Earth is probably more detailed.
Yeah, well, and fortunately, they both kind of work together the same way.
You can see Chagres, how big and how important Chagres is, and where it starts.
No,
I've never really seen it like that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So this here, let me share this screen here in just a moment.
So what is that mountain range where it starts, Willie? You guys, anybody know that mountain range? Because that's God's mountain. That's where all the water comes from.
It's what they call the Continental Divide is that area there, where it started. The river started north of that, right, and started working that way. But so here's the Gatun Dam area, and the truth about it is, we assume that this piece right here, this semicircle, right? Everyone says, "Hey, that's the Gatun Dam." No, that is the spillway of the Gatun Dam. The Gatun Dam starts over here at this corner, this bend here, and goes all the way virtually up against the Gatun Locks. This entire area is the Gatun Dam. It is an earthen dam that is over a mile long, or over half a mile long, and almost 1,500 feet thick at the base. And that's what the dam is. That the piece that we see up there, that's the spillway, which controls the water. You can let it down, let it up, and whatnot, and of course that generates power for that area. But that was, to me, the most intriguing thing about it, is that we just kind of understood from seeing pictures and what our knowledge of it was, that it's that little area there, and said, it's just the top little piece, man. It's the thing below the water is the massive dam, and that was the piece that was most impressive, for these guys to do that construction on. So let me go ahead and get back to that piece there again, where we were just at here. There it is. Okay. So again, once they dam this area up, then you're able to create this 164 square mile lake, which at the time was the largest man-made lake in the world. And that really became your bridge to then get over the Isthmus of Panama and then start lowering yourself through the locks on the Pacific side, or vice versa. So that was, that was the really impressive thing about it. The Gatun Lake itself has a lot of structure still underwater there that in fact, hopefully one of these days we'll get Lance Wiskowski on, because he did a lot of diving there and has a lot of pictures about that. But there's a lot of structures there, because they weren't going to move them. They just, filled it up and it was time to go. But here's
Willie,
the interesting thing.
Sorry, Willie, but it's important. They were built out of redwood. That's why they survive underwater, because redwood can survive under raw all day long.
Yeah, it's a testament to that material. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Absolutely right. And that's why they spared didn't spare any expenses in getting that and importing it all the way out from California, because they realized what it was going to do for longevity and stuff. But
right. So, and in the tropics.
The Panama Canal, obviously there's two versions of it. The French attempt, which was in the late 1800s, and then, of course, our attempt. What's interesting is that we were going to mimic a lot of what they were doing and really repeat a lot of their mistakes until we finally came to our senses and through different surveys and studies and stuff determined that, hey, a sea level canal is really not feasible in this area, especially on the Pacific side with your tidal changes so much. It's just very difficult to do. And part of that was damming, because they still were going to have to dam the Chagres River somewhere. They recognized that the Chagres River was a river that, we don't see it today because of the fact that it pours right into the lake. And so the water levels have risen to the point where it's really slowed that river down quite a bit. But back in the day, that was a very, very violent river many times of the year, especially during the rainy season. And so the French were going to do it in an area near Bohio, which is further inland, but there was a couple different interesting things about it. It was 17 miles upstream from the Chagres mouth, right? The Chagres mouth is in the Balboa area, right? That's considered the Chagres mouth. So this one was 17 miles upstream of that. The bedrock, and this is what's interesting, is what they were looking for was a lot of this work that they did. You had to find where the actual bedrock was, or the actual rock on the Earth's crust, versus all the dirt and stuff. what happens over time in a place, especially in a tropical area, right? You have trees and debris and leaves and everything falls into these rivers and these lakes. It eventually sinks. It starts to rot and it becomes the dirt. And over, decades, hundreds of years, 1,000 years, whatever, you suddenly have a very thick layer. It feels very firm, but once you start putting a lot of serious weight on it, it starts to sink. And it turns out it's not as steady as you think it is and as firm it is. And so, finding the bedrock really was critical to these things, especially something as big as a dam was. And you're going to see here the size of this thing and why it was so important to find that. But, part of the reason also they found the composition wasn't right in that location, for that dam. It eventually was going to fail. And that's one of the things that they did conclude. Whereas, with the Gatun Dam site, it was right near the coast. I mean, it was 3.5 miles from Limon Bay, from the Caribbean. It was right there is where that area was to finally dam it up. The bedrock depth there was up to 258 feet below sea level. So it wasn't an easier job. It was certainly much more difficult because you still had to get to that bedrock, but they still considered it a much sturdier place and a much more strategic place to build this, especially once they decided on going with that locks canal and using that opportunity there. But again, it was going to create that reservoir, which was 164 square miles, which is a massive, massive lake, for any stretch. Fish for tarpon at the bottom of the end. Yes, the dam and the locks areas were very well known for great fishing. It really was an opportune area for it, for sure. So, a couple of things that we're going to just to understand, the image on the right is the actual spillway mechanism, the concrete mechanism where the water is moving and coming out. And again, that is just a very small portion of the whole dam itself. But on the left there is what they're talking about, which was that Chagres riverbed, and that riverbed, again, you could probably walk on it, and, in some low areas during dry season, you could probably drive trucks across it and you think, hey, this is pretty firm. But when you start putting really large major structures on it, you come to realize that ground moves a lot and it sinks a lot. And so there was a lot of work to do there. And they had to actually create these exploratory pits. And they were 90 feet deep. And they were actually big enough they were like small rooms that people would go down inside there and check all the soils of samples throughout the year to understand how the water was moving from the dry season to the rainy season to then determine, is this area, going to work for us? And as it turns out, strategically, which I wish there was a way to see this, what that area looked like, because there was a valley between that highland area on the Atlantic side that was where the Chagres River cut through, and that's where they actually built the dam. And now, of course, we see it all as water. It's 85 feet above sea level, and so you really can't appreciate the terrain or the topography there. But it was a very natural place. It made total sense to build it there, but nonetheless, it was still a monumental project here. So here kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at, okay? To look at the scale of this thing, okay?
Like a pyramid.
It is, very much so. But if you notice, look at where the sea level is, or the lake level is, 85 feet. So what we're seeing, and again, on that earlier picture we saw from the map, you're just seeing that tippy top area there, right? All the rest of it is all underwater, and it goes, that entire length, it's that level of thickness. The base width is 2,300 feet, nearly half a mile thick. Okay, that's incredible. Okay, the waterline thickness is 397 feet, and the maximum height above sea level was 105 feet. They were originally going to go 120 feet, but they even at 15 feet they determined would reduce the weight. And in fact, the weight of this entire dam. They're estimated to weigh 30 million tons. Let me think about that. So that's why, again, you had to get to that bedrock, right? Because otherwise, that is no doubt about it is going to sink, and that could be catastrophic. As we know, that canal gets breached in any way, shape, or form, and the water drains. You're talking years that it's out of commission. This is not something that you're going to fill up over a couple of days, weeks, months. It's going to take years to recover. So it was absolutely critical that they did this the right way, and they had never attempted anything of this scale or this size. The
French weren't going to do that.
Heck no. They had no
money to do
that.
Yeah.
No money, nor the equipment. The equipment they had, as we've seen from the other previous episodes, it was just completely not capable of hauling these amounts. It would have taken them 50 years, 100 years to build this. You know. Here's another example of that, and this is the interesting part of where it all started. You have what they call tows on either side, and it's not on the long sides; it's on the width, on the the lake side, and then on the back side that's draining out, with the Chagres River on that channel, and those are called tows. They fill that with a bunch of rocks, and that forms the base. That inside there, now they're going to start creating that big mechanism. And one of the things they talked about here was as they would dump dirt and silt in there, the larger pieces tend to stay to the sides, and just with the way the water moves and whatnot, the silt starts to work itself towards the middle. And the finer it is, the more it gets towards the middle, and it starts to settle down over time, and it actually creates a waterproof seal, believe it or not, from the actual dirt itself. It was really interesting, some of the things they found out about this thing. What about even with clay, that apparently the makeup, the structural makeup of clay molecules, they're flat like discs. And so when they all start falling in very fine silt, they all interlock and they create a very impervious, almost like a rubber sealant, right? You put in the ground before a pool or something. So it's interesting how Mother Nature works there. But as you can see on the diagram here, on the left is those rock tows. And what they did here, because again, you're talking about an area at the base was almost a half a mile wide. So you can envision a half a mile wide if you're looking at Balboa, right? Half a mile wide is probably from Stevens Circle to the admin, right? I would think that's about a half a mile. That's the width of this thing, right? And so first of all, where do you get all this rock for that? Obviously, you have the Culebra Cut, right? We learned that a lot of the stuff that wasn't going to Balboa and Amador was going in the other direction. It's going downhill, working its way to the Atlantic side, and start dropping us off. And what they would do is they built these railroad bridges, right? And they were up 85 feet high. And they would bring that train in there full of rock, and they were using those Lidgerwood flat cars, and they used the same plow, and they would plow all that rock off the sides. And they just did that for months and months until the rock would build itself up, and pretty soon it surrounded the scaffolding of that rail line. And that's how they could, and just, of course they would move it over a little bit more, move it over. And eventually they filled in that whole area and in essence created a mountain or a big hill that was, long and I guess narrow in the scheme of things. But on the inside, what they did is they took the dredges. This is where they took some of those French dredges that they had repurposed, and they turned them into suction dredges. And they would create this slurry of mud and water that would, again, because of the clay structures inside it, it would eventually pack itself down and interlace all those structural pieces on it, and it would create that impervious layer. And then over time, they keep filling it in more and more. It settles, and then they finally fill the top of it with dry earth. And that's really the whole concept of this dam. Of course, there's more to it than that, but that was basically how they came up with a way to build something of this size, understanding that failure is not an option here. This thing has to hold, and it has to hold forever. Right? It's not you're not going to take this down and rebuild it in 50 years, Well,
I bet you that's how they build islands, those artificial islands. That seems like probably how they do that. How Panama built that artificial island? Yeah. Yeah,
they absolutely do, And nowadays you see in a lot more of these places where they actually have those big concrete, they're not even boulders anymore. They look like geometric pieces. Right, but they kind of interlock in themselves, and they use those a lot on breakwaters and things of that nature. Because I think that's probably structurally stronger, and I guess what it does is when the water hits it on a wave, it breaks it up into a bunch of different directions as opposed to one, solid wave smashing into the wall.
Right. They don't move so easily when they're on that triangular.
Correct, kind of like and they dissipate the water, the strength of the water.
Yep.
So check this out. In 1908, one of the areas that you saw, remember we were talking about all that silt and dirt at the bottom, and how important that was. Well, they started building this rock wall there, and then all of a sudden they had towards November 1900, they're getting a lot more rain. It's towards the end of the rainy season as well. But one of those areas started to sink, and they come in one day and it had dropped almost 200 feet in that rock wall. And it was because of that soft under area. They hadn't cleared it out far enough, and they weren't quite at the bedrock, and eventually it collapsed. Interesting thing about it, two things that were interesting. One, 1908, there's not exactly internet and satellite information. And so, a lot of times the news that may get out is not necessarily the right news, the right accurate information. And so a lot of people were thinking that the dam had collapsed. Well, heck, they hadn't even started building the dam yet. They did, but they weren't to that point yet. But the news all over the United States was that this dam collapsed, and now the people are dead everywhere, and this canal project's going to fail. And it got to the point where Teddy Roosevelt sent President-elect Taft, which that in itself I found kind of interesting, that the president sends the president-elect down as if, they work that way. But nonetheless, he sent him down with some engineers to look this thing over. And what they discovered was that the way that collapsed, it forced that slurry mud out on the sides, and it sealed it up and made it actually stronger as a foundation. So it actually, did them a favor. But when these engineers investigated this, it turns out they reported back to Roosevelt and to the States, to everybody, and said, hey, this thing actually is way stronger than we need it to be. But yeah, not to worry, that's not even a setback. It actually helped us out in the long run. But here's something interesting. You're talking about making money, right? We talked last month about how people were making money in, working the canal, that the cost of living was so low that they were sending, just millions of dollars back home. And the other thing about it was the supplies that were being purchased in the United States. You talk about, Bucyrus, 100 steam shovels. Well, those things aren't cheap, right? You're talking about 200 locomotives and 500, 600 rail cars. None of that stuff is cheap. And so one of the things that obviously was needed everywhere was concrete, was cement. And so they ordered the Gatun locks themselves, because that whole Gatun project was pretty much the locks in the dam. They were all right in that one area there. But the Gatun locks required 2 million cubic yards of concrete and 2,250,000 barrels of cement. Which, by the way, the difference between cement and concrete is cement is your base material. Concrete is when you mix it with your other materials to then create your filler, right, or your structure there. So, you're ordering these barrels of concrete. So these things were done by the Portland Cement, or the Atlas Portland Cement Company up in Portland, Maine, was who they ordered these from. 4,500,000 barrels of Portland cement. So somebody got paid, man. Somebody got paid some good money. But you know what? That probably created a lot of jobs, because if you think about it, you weren't shipping this down, 1,000 barrels at a time, right? Because the canal cannot afford to pour concrete for a week and then be off for 5 weeks while they work for more concrete, right? And so this thing, when you're talking about these factories up in the States probably had to double or triple their workforce, almost similar in a sense to, the World War II effort, where all of a sudden your car manufacturers started making aircraft, right? And everybody started manufacturing in large scale. That's what this caused. For those industries that were impacted by it, they were suddenly hiring everybody they could, because they were suddenly required to supply just ridiculous amounts of raw materials. It was quite the undertaking, and they got themselves a nice little contract there. I would not mind being the salesperson on that contract, at even at 3% commission. your grandkids are retired. But the other thing was, again, as we learned a lot about, was a lot of this automation, right, to keep this thing moving. Because one of the things that we understood is during 1903, because a lot of what we did as far as our heavy equipment was using steam, it was not practical from a financial standpoint to stop and go. You had to maximize the operation of that machine, keep it going, because once you light those burners, it goes until it's out, right? It's not like a car where you can turn it off. So you want to have that thing working as much as possible. And the only way to do that is keep it supplied with whatever it needs, be it materials to dig with, or in this case, materials to pour with. But so at the docks, they had, huge storehouses there for cement to keep rotating it and moving it out on those rail lines. We learned that this is where a lot of those French rail cars that weren't equipped to work in Culebra, but they were certainly useful. You had them running in and out of the docks here on the Atlantic side all the time, right? You had these specialized electric conveyors there, and it's funny how AI sometimes treats it, because it puts a cable car in there, but I don't think they were using cable cars to haul things over there. But that looks more like Ricky's town there, where you have cable cars that.
But remember, that was a form of transportation. So yes, they could have used that. They could have used that, Willie. They could have used that.
It's possible, but
Possible,
nonetheless,
yeah.
it was just interesting that they were using a lot of these different mechanisms. Electricity wasn't something that was produced a lot, and certainly again, you're talking about Panama, early 1900s. There wasn't a bunch of power plants there to supply all this stuff either.
Only of the canal, really.
Correct. And so, the cement mixers, they had massive cement mixers. And then the cableways, that's the one that's interesting. You see that a lot when you see the later construction of the Gatun locks themselves and of Miraflores, that, you had these huge towers, and they were on rail tracks. And the idea there was to constantly move, just so much cement and concrete to be constantly pouring and making this thing happen so that it could get done. And even then, it took 10 years to do all that. It's just amazing the gargantuan effort that was undertaken here. This company Lidgerwood, I mean, these guys were just like the kings of transporting, moving, picking up, and dumping spoil. They had their cars, the Lidgerwood plow. The cableway was done by Lidgerwood themselves as well. So these guys, they made out like bandits in this canal operation, man. 25,000 tons of steel rail. That's one of the things, remember, we talked about how they repurposed a lot of the French equipment and even the rails, because they had to make the rails a different gauge. So they had to rip up a bunch of rail, and that's a bunch of good steel. And they took that stuff and they turned it around and used it for these cable cars and created these just rows and rows of rails there to be able to move this stuff and constantly be pouring concrete and making it work. And I bet the strategy of pouring changed I bet it did, without a doubt. Yeah, and unfortunately,
didn't you mention that, Willie, that there was two something? Well, there was like a rainy season and a dry season hauling, was it? You had mentioned that in the past.
There was that, and there was also an interesting thing. It didn't really have to do with the logistics piece here, but they had a very, very in-depth monitoring of the Chagres River. And they could tell you with about 12 to 15 hours notice when you had to get out of an area because it's about to be flooded. There's a raging torrent that's getting ready to come down in this direction. It's been raining on the other side of the hill there for 3 days, and it's time to start moving. And if they didn't do it, and that was part of what we learned in 1904 and 1905 was the struggles of having, the operation being handled up in Washington. And with communication so slow that by the time someone said, yes, move all those tracks out of there, it was too late. The flood already came in last night and flooded it all out. And so, yeah, that's a good point that, rainy season, dry season, you had to change your operation big time. Absolutely. That would be interesting to see, the correlation of the work patterns during the rainy seasons and dry seasons. And maybe they switch gears and, hey, we'll build some more of this stuff during the rainy season, and dry season we'll switch and do this stuff.
Yeah. That's how they manage that. Right. That's how they manage it. Like they're going to pour concrete mostly in the dry season, things like that.
Yeah, certainly. So the other thing that was interesting about this was that supply chain, right? Because again, you had to make this stuff work. They were very purposeful. We tend to look at things like concrete, and unless you're in that industry and you understand how that works, it's not just any grass and dirt and whatever you can throw in there, mix it up, and you have effective concrete. You have to have something that's gonna, like we said before, it's gonna last an eternity, and so the sand that they used was from Nombre de Dios, and we know Nombre de Dios was up a little bit west or east of even Portobello, right? And that was one of the early colonies in Panama, but that area also had a very, very fine sand that they were able to dredge up and bring that in and use that because it was exactly what they needed to mix this concrete. Again, the Portland cement was brought in from the U.S. and shipped in constantly. Portobello had some rock area there they had a quarry there as well. And they crushed a lot of the rock there. It was interesting because you need sand, but you also, depending on what it is you're building with the concrete you're trying to make, oftentimes you'll put crushed rock in there in addition to your sand. And so they not only did they have the big stone to drop in there to start building this, 2,300 foot wide, hill basically and dam, but there was areas that they would bring this in, and your entire job in this entire section and factory here was nothing but rock crushers. These big piston and steam powered, hammers that are doing nothing but just pulverizing rock and turning it into smaller pieces or into sand that you can then turn around and use in your construction and gravel. Yeah, absolutely. And then of course you had your train loads of stuff coming in from Culebra and everywhere else. But there was a lot involved in getting this Gatun area, and again getting this dam going here. It's interesting. The dam is the hydroelectric, right? But until it's built and opening, it's not providing you any bit of power. In fact, it's consuming power like everything else was. And so what they ended up doing was they set up a warehouse where they would start producing their steam and generate electricity. And it was all oil powered. That was the one area where they realized coal is just not going to work. It's too time consuming. There's too much you have to do and clean out. Oil, you burn it, it's gone, basically. Whereas coal, once it burns, you got to sweep it out, right? You got to clean the area out. You got to refill it again. And so it was more practical to do it with oil. And so they ended up building a power area, which, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll research this to follow up on it, it's still there, and it was intended to be supplying power for this whole area. And then once the dam opened and was operational, they would switch that one to be the one generating power, but they would leave this one as a backup, right? In the event that something catastrophic happens, the dam is breached, something happens. And I mean, if somewhere else, the Gatun locks get blown out and the water drains out of there, well, that dam can't produce any more electricity if there's no water flowing through it. So they had a backup power system, which was the original power system. They just said, hey, well, let's just leave this in place and just keep it maintained, because
exactly. Why get rid of it? Right. That's a great machine.
Murphy's Law, man. Absolutely. And it works well,
And who invented that Murphy's Law? A Zonian.
A Zonian, yes, that is very true. That is so cool, man. That is so cool. You never thought of that, right?
Yeah, something go wrong is going to go wrong. It has to come from the canal, man. Only the canal.
Yep, absolutely. So here's the difference in the power sources. Again, early on it was steam power, and it was generated through oil. You're right. It wasn't really like the burning, they're kind of showing it like coal there, but it is oil burning. And then from there, of course, it transitioned over to the power generated by the actual dam itself. Again, just a little bit of that supply web here and what they had to do. It was really costly, but they wanted a system that was going to be perfect, right? The 56-ton Porter locomotives hauled stone from the quarry to the crushers, operating on a steep grade. And that's a big deal. If you understand railroads, a 3% grade is actually very, very steep. Okay. If it was going uphill with that load, it would be very difficult to achieve, especially in the rain. It would be very slippery and whatnot. But the flip side is you can go downhill with virtually no power at all. You're right. And so it's much more economical to do that. They're obviously going uphill empty. They're going to fill up with rock and come back down, get them all crushed up to then, like you said, get that gravel and sand and things like that. They're talking about the built in just 37 days. And then I got to double check that, because I don't think that's the whole Gatun Dam. There's no way that was built in 37 days. But there's some interesting facts here that we talk about when it comes to, the spillway and how it functions, what they built into the ground and stuff that you don't see in any of these images. But, those squares that you see that are called baffle blocks, there's 19 of those that are on the other side of the spillway. They're 9 feet high. They're made out of concrete, and then they cover them in steel. And those are designed for them. When the water hits them, it basically smooths out the turbulence on it, so it doesn't wash away the channel behind it, right? Because the amount of pressure that's coming out of there, and at that height and speed, would just completely wash out that bottom. Even if it was just flat concrete, eventually it would start washing it out. So they built those baffle blocks in there, and even the channels, the pipes that the water comes out of at the spillway, are angled in such a way that the water all converges in such a way at the bottom there to lessen the impact of the water itself going after. So they put a lot of thought into this whole dam, other than just, controlling it and in a place to hold water and everything. The one big key to all of this piece, as we've learned from talking about earlier, was, the water rising and certain towns being submerged and everything, but was the Panama Railroad itself had to be raised up. Had to be raised up in some places, of course, as we know, 85 feet, because there was just so much water area. And the Panama Railroad, you don't realize it at the time unless you're able to see a map before the dam was built and before Gatun Lake itself was created and filled up, that a big chunk of the Panama Road went right through those areas. And so it was very low-lying areas. There's no reason, in 1855 to think that you had to climb way uphill somewhere when you had just had flat, swampy ground there. And so it worked, and they used it. But they ended up having to lift this up. And one of the interesting things is that we had 160 what they call massive earth embankments. Right, they had areas that were fluctuating so bad, and they would do again the same thing. They would build a bridge, a trestle bridge, and they would start dumping rock around it, and they would just fill up all around it, and that would now become your permanent road and your permanent track. And as opposed to having a bridge that you'd have to keep, rebuilding periodically. So it was quite a project. Started in 1907. 5 years it took, $9 million to rebuild 40 miles of track. For that Panama Road to continue functioning, because that, again, that was the key to moving all that spoil, was having a functional railroad, during all these things. So pretty impressive there with what they did. Here you're talking about the new towns, and what we've learned from Gatun is that it's moved now for the third time, right? Because of the new locks as well. Part of that got displaced once again. But it's been interesting to see that, what's happened to the town of Gatun. Has played such a prominent role. And yet, just because of its location more than anything else, it's been impacted so many times. It's just been, you had to move. The original town of Gatun is literally where that dam is now. Where literally, that entire earthen dam is. Yes.
Yeah. Literally takes a beating and keeps on ticking.
It does, man. And they moved it, and then they decided to build a new canal, and they said you got to move again, man.
That one's got to move
that
again.
area.
Indeed. Yeah, but they're tough, man. They're still there. Right on, Gatun.
They are. So, but that was basically the Gatun Dam. It was an amazing project. Without that dam, you don't have the canal, right? Mm-hmm. That's something we have learned, that without that dam, you definitely don't have the Panama Canal. You don't have,
drinking water.
None of that, because you had to control the water, right? You had to control that Chagres River. You've seen. Think about it this way: how impressive is it when they open up the spillway? Oh, see, look at those things.
People go.
We got those black squares again. Oh, I got it.
We're
back
to the squares. I don't know.
Yeah, I caught it though. This time,
I think it's the screen. I think it's the screen.
I don't know.
This only happens when we're on the screen. Yeah. So we had to go back to. We're gonna have to go back to our.
No, I don't think it's that, because we've had it before.
I know.
No, dude, we've been having this for a while. Dude. I think it's an issue with EV Mux. I'm gonna reach out to those guys tomorrow. Their tech support, because
we pay them good
there's
money
something
too.
going on here. Yeah, absolutely. And I got to re-up here in September again. So
is that what we're probably doing? Is doing that to remind us?
Well, this is not a good way to remind you, man. Is that your system doesn't work well, because that's not giving me a lot of confidence in these guys, But
go back to our first platform, but that one only had like 3 buttons. That's too boring for us.
StreamYard sucked. That thing was garbage, man. that was your junior samples way of doing things. We figured out a different one here, but. Okay, so now we should be good now. Let me look up on the screen here, and 1, 2, 3, go. There we are. All right. See, I told you we'd be back. Okay, cool.
Willie always figures it out. You're becoming a master of this stuff, Willie, man.
I'm trying to, man. I'm trying to here. But anyhow, so we ran a little bit long, and truth be told, the Canal Zone mailbag, CZ mailbag, we got some very challenging questions last week. I didn't think they were that challenging, okay? The first one was regarding, did the Canal Zone police have divers? Or was that something that the Navy handled? And it turns out the Canal Zone police did. I do know that much, but I wasn't able to find a lot of information on it, so I got to pick a few people's brains. I want to talk to Kevin Barsis, because I know his dad was part of that bush patrol, and I believe they were one and the same. They also, did the stuff on the water and whatnot. And then the other question that Laura Kosick sent us was about that location below Sosa Hill. And what was that? There's been rumors that it was an air conditioning vent system or something for the ad
inside
and all
the hill, actually.
Yes. Remember, right on the corner of Roosevelt and Balboa Road. Right? Remember, you had that little cut off that you could cut across that way. It was right there. You had to. It looked like either like big giant air conditioning vents or something there, but it was a big concrete.
Yeah, that's what I
structure
heard. It
right
was
at the base there.
boilers for the air conditioning system at Balboa
Right.
High School and Balboa and the admin building.
Correct,
That's what I
correct. And so I did read. I did read a couple of things, and one of them was that that they were. It was a listening station for the Army back in the day. So, but
the
I
what?
couldn't get clarification for the Army. The Army had a listening station there.
Yes.
But I couldn't get a lot of clarification on it. And like I said, on the Canal Zone Police one, I didn't. And truth be told, in all honesty, both Rick and I have been slammed with work this week. And I mean, I jumped on here at 7:35. Ricky's panicking. Ricky's sending a scouting patrol to go look for me, man. He's like, "Where is this guy, man? We have a show in 25 minutes. I ain't heard from him in 3 days." So, but we will definitely answer those questions next week because we will not be stumped. We have a crack research team here that's going to figure this stuff out, and we're gonna come up with some solutions for you.
And you also had to prep for the show, where I could have done architecture and helped you out, but next week, so you'll be able to rest this week, and I'll do all the research.
Yes.
Balboa is going to be awesome, guys.
It's going to be cool. Yeah, Balboa is what it's going to be. But anyhow, remember, guys, tomorrow is the birthday of the Panama Canal, right? And so to kind of honor that, we're going to throw in. We just did a different little exit scene here. So here, enjoy this, guys, and see what your thoughts are. There it is. Happy birthday, Panama Canal. The Miraflores Locks behind us there, and and check out, as you can see, there's a little ship moving there. And gee whiz, what is the name of that boat that's going through there?
Yeah, I would have to guess the Ancon. Yeah.
Yes, that's Ancon. There you go. A little,
Hey, guys, that's the
transiting the
AI
canal today, but but
all
there
your
it
donations.
is. Man, so, yes.
So
indeed.
what's the
And
deal with
by the
AI?
way,
So people understand that when we say we need money for the AI, is that when we have this, we're paying for like widgets or
there's
what
a
is it
couple
called?
of things. I mean, there's a lot of different expenses. I mean, just for example, to create video and stuff like that, there's a lot of different AI tools that you can use. A lot of my research that I do, I use some AI tools to do that, to create a lot of the infographics and stuff like that, and that costs money. But see, the biggest expense is the studio. This studio costs about, every Friday night to put the show on, it's costing upwards of about $40, $50, which doesn't seem like a lot, but there's 4 or 5 Fridays every month, right? And then there's other expenses on top of that. So, anyway, we do appreciate the donations. Some guys have been fantastic.
That's where all the money goes. Just like those things that you're seeing going on in the background. Yeah. That's
So, but anyway, listen, guys, great show next week. We're gonna have some amazing architecture. Nikki, get us out of here, man. Let's start your
Yes,
weekend off
thank
good,
you
man.
guys. Like always, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for everything you guys share with us. We'll see you next week at the same time with another great show. 2 years, 5 months. So we got a lot more to go, and we will see you next week.
You got it, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Gracias.
Cheers.
Cheers.